Hey guys, welcome to Agility A to Z. And here we have Dov with us. Uh, uh, and you all are most welcome, from Agility A to Z team, which is Sumiti, Purva, and me. This is an effort of Women in Agile in Tech. And um, we run all of this with support of Agile Alliance and AgileVirgin, which is a local community of practices. And yeah, so we are all set. And I pass on the mic to Dov, and we get started for today.
Okay, so before we get started, in fact, we already started, but for the formality, before we get started, I have two requests.
Sure.
One is, could you open your videos even for 1 minute so we get to see each other? We get to see where we are.
I love the idea. Yeah.
Because when you show yourself, you also you give a present for all of the other people, so we all feel connected. So we see where we are, what is our facial expression, what is our mental state today. So let's see, who are we in this group?
It's
Okay.
okay if you are, outside in a car, or, you're walking outside. That is also totally cool. And you can be as shabby as us. Look at Dove. He does not have to worry about his hair. Wherein
I do have to worry, but worrying brings me nowhere. That's the thing.
hey, it's lovely. Let me quickly take also a screenshot.
Yeah, so everyone do this for the screenshot. Hello. If you're driving, keep your hands on the wheel. Okay.
Yeah.
And second thing that I would like you to do is look around. Take a look at the remove. I don't know if you see me as the speaker, have the hive view where you see everyone. And this is one of the exercises that I really love to do. It doesn't show this. Take 20 seconds of silence. Okay, so before we start, let's have silence for 20 seconds and just look around during the hour and a half minus some minutes. We're part of a journey, and these are our friends to this journey. Okay. So what I was invited to talk about is, unfortunately, I have slides that I have to share, so at least me, I can't enjoy this high view for all the time. So what I was invited to talk about is, first of all, I was asked to talk about Scrum. And then I said I can't talk about Scrum without talking about agility first. And to talk about agility and Scrum in the same session is too much. So I would like to talk just about what, in fact, just as the title says, what are we talking about when we're talking about agility? So I guess you heard the word agility at least once during your lifetime, at least when you registered for this webinar, I guess. And since you registered, it's because it resonates something. And today I would like to understand what does it mean, and to give you some background of where did it come from and why, and a deeper understanding. And we'll see how deep in a minute. But first of all, I have to get the technology right. A few words about me, so really, really fast. So one is, one of my passions is meeting culture. So the card that I just showed you is part of a training tool that I created to hack meeting culture. If you're interested, contact me. Two is I'm a coach. And I'm specifically dealing with something called Xscale, which is an open framework or set of practices to agilify an organization. And what I love to do is to take teams and kickstart them into working in an agile way. And we don't know what's agile yet. I'm also a life coach for C-level, for personal. And one thing that you will see is relevant for today is that I am one of my big passions or inspirations is Taoism. So I don't know if you know anything about Taoism or not, but we'll talk about that as well today in a few minutes. And I love to speak. That's part of the reason I'm here. And I would like you now to practice some tools for today. So today's session is meant to be interactive, and you will see at the upper part of your screen, not if you're driving, please. You have a button called Annotate. And over there you have tools such as draw, so you can draw lines, you can draw shapes, text, where you can write some text, and we'll practice this in a minute, and choose a color. So let's have fun with this. In the next slide we'll do that, but before I start, I would love to have two volunteers, one to help me keep track of time. So what I would like to do is I would like to receive a ping. It can be by voice, I don't care, every 30 minutes. And especially if in 30 minutes I don't get to a slide that looks like the thing here on the right. Okay? Because it's important. And also 15 minutes before the end, because I would love to leave time for questions. So who volunteers, please tell me. Okay, Deepti, thanks a lot. And the second one, which is also very important, is because I speak, I don't have contact with all of you, and I need someone to help me keep contact with all of you. So what I would like is what I call a moderator, someone who reads all the comments, and I invite you all to put questions, comments, things that are unclear. And the role of the moderator is to read all of this and to stop me if I'm not clear, and also to make sure that questions are addressed. So who would like to do that?
I guess
Yeah.
Rakhi.
Yes.
Rakhi will do it.
So one thing that I really hate to do is to impose on people.
No, no, it's absolutely fine. I'm ready to do that. I will try to do it as best as possible.
Great. So are your two roles clear enough?
Yes.
Yes, like this. I already know is not like yes, like this. It's a shade of.
Yes, like this. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. And now, could you rename yourself and put in parentheses your role? Okay. And now we can start. So for the first slide, in fact, I would love to know why you're here. So we are here for an hour and a half. I think that most of you know something called YouTube that has tons of videos. And if you wanted to see something about agility, all you have to do is type agility there and get tons of videos. Why did you come to this session? Okay, so now use your tool and write it down. Okay, so again, I remind you, you do annotate, you select text. Good, okay, so you know how to do it. Great.
So those of you who don't know, you can see there is view option in the menu. Either it's at the lower bar or at the top. Click on view menu. There you will see annotation. And when you click annotation, there'll be another tray of tools. There you can draw, there you have text. So you better use text, okay? And then if you want to erase, there is an eraser as well. Cool?
And Purva, please don't do it while you're driving.
I'm not driving, I'm just sitting.
Okay.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
And by the way, I would suggest that everyone picks another color, so we see that it's different people, and you didn't just write interactive twice. Cross-industry example, interesting. Can you elaborate? What do you mean by cross-industry examples?
What about those of us who don't have access to the tool? I don't have access.
So if you don't have access, put it in the chat. But it's strange. I don't know why you don't have access. Perhaps you can have a chat with the moderator, and she will put your answer there. And who wrote cross-industry examples? I would love to hear what you mean.
Those of you who don't have access, you can put your question in chat and I will move them to the screen.
Can you not share the link for the tool?
It's not a link, it's inside the tool itself.
Absolutely.
It's not an external tool.
Yeah.
You have the annotate option, just like you have the chat option, you have the annotate option.
Yes, exactly.
And in the annotate option, you have a lot of tools.
Everyone has access actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe in the browser. Yeah.
Okay, so what you want is to hear about examples more than the IT domain. Okay. I don't know if today we will dive into examples. Examples will be more tomorrow when we dive into an example of agility, of how to implement agility. Today I will talk in a very high level definition, learn new ways to facilitate learning. So you're learning one just now. You see, we learned a new tool. Practical session. We'll see how practical it is. The way I designed this session is a session that is suitable for 1.5 hours of a weekend. So we'll see how it moves. Okay, so now take a look around and see if your expectations match expectations of other people. And meanwhile, I will take a screenshot. Okay, and now let's move on. I'll just clear your answers. And let's move on. Oops. Okay, so a story usually starts by these words. We have another answer. No people perspective while attending collaborative session. Wow, no people perspective while attending collaborative session. Okay. Yeah, and I'll get back to that in a minute. In fact, I think that the main reason that people want to attend a session like this is the topic of our discussion. Because agility is about reactivity. Because no YouTube video that I saw so far reacts to what happens with the people who watch it while they watch it. And this is, if you want, in a very fast way, the definition of agility. So agility is the ability to respond to a situation that is changing. And this session or any interaction has this ability, while a video, I think, at least most of them can't. So let's go back to the story of agility. Most of the time, we start the story of agility by saying that once upon a time, in February 2001, there was a group of people, and we'll get there. But I would like to start in a totally different time, I think thousands of years ago, by two characters. One of them I think you know very well, and the other one I promised that I'll talk about. And the first one is this. So the first time that I was in India, it was someone has a background noise. So could you all please mute yourself? It would be great. First time I was in India for an Agile conference. And I had the 2-week journey and some meditation before I went there. And I met a wonderful character called Ganesha. And in fact, when I came to the conference, I realized that if the Agilist had a god, for sure Ganesha would be the Lord of Agilists. And I'll give you just the main reasons, but there's a lot of them. You can read an article that I wrote about this. One of them, the most dramatic one, in fact, is that Ganesha changed his head, right? So he was a kid, and then he wound up with the head of an elephant. So it changed his head totally, 360 degrees. The other one is regarding his physical attributes. So he has huge ears, and as you see here, you almost never see his mouth. He's mainly listening. He doesn't talk a lot. And another one is some people told me, he has a huge belly to store what he has. He likes sweet things. He likes to help people. And that's, I think, the main thing. All the rest are a bit superficial, but Ganesha, from what I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, he is the god that is responsible for the removal of impediments. And removal of impediments is the main role of agilists. So like, I don't know if you heard roles like Scrum Master or Agile Coach. Our main role or as a change agent is not to put change in place, but to unblock things that are blocked, is to remove impediments. And the best way to do it is also from the stories of Ganesha that you must know better than me, is to do it in a good tempered way. So this is the first character that I want to introduce to you, so you understand a little bit agility as I see it. And the second one is, you can say it's someone who I consider my mentor, which is Lao Tzu, the first Agile coach. So Lao Tzu is the founder of the philosophy called Taoism. And I would like to tell you the story of Lao Tzu because it's the first story of Agile coaching. So Lao Tzu is living in fact, you can say he's working in a huge enterprise called China. And he lived, if he lived, he's a mythology just as Ganesha, but the story says that he lived 2,500 years ago, and he was the library keeper of the Emperor of China. Now, the Emperor of China, just like a lot of huge organization, was in the verge of a transformation. And it was not in a transformation that was chosen, it was in a transformation that was forced on it because of political moves, because of the invention of iron, because of a lot of things like that. China started an era of rebellion, of fights between villages, of pillaging of robbers that were on the way. And the empire of China, that was a very strong empire until that day, started to crumble. And the emperor of China didn't know what to do. And what does the head of a big organization that doesn't know what to do do? He calls on advisors. So we had 3 advisors. The first advisor was a command and control guy, was the head of the army. And the head of the Chinese army said, of course, put army in place. Recruit a lot of soldiers, put them everywhere, fight all rebellion, which is a hard thing to do. And he had another advisor, which perhaps you heard of, called Confucius. And Confucius was a very smart philosopher. And he was, if you want, an advisor that is specializing in processes. And he was the master of inventing social processes. And what he advised to the emperor is build a new religion. In this religion, God will be on top. Below God will be you. Below you will be the head of each canton, of each area. Below that, the head of each village. Below that, the head of each family. Below that, the firstborn. Below that, the secondborn, etc., etc. By the way, no women in the story. It shows you how we progress. And this way, no one will have the will to rebel because everyone will have something to lose. So if you give roles to people, they will not want to rebel and change. And he had another advisor, which is the hero of this story, one of them, on my side, who is Lao Tzu. And Lao Tzu was a strange guy. Like they said that he used to go barefoot and talk to animals and disappear. Like it's something really strange, but the emperor really liked him. And he asked him, what should I do? And Lao Tzu said, in a nutshell, shit happens. So what he said is, the best thing that I can advise you to do is to accept what's going on. And whatever you will do to fight it and whatever process you will put in place will just make things worse. Which is, could you mute yourself or ask a question? Okay, so the emperor, I'll try to mute you. Can someone mute Vipin? So the emperor of China, who loved Lao Tzu very much, couldn't, as you can imagine, accept an advice like this. It's even if your gut feeling says that he's right, it's a too drastic change for an organization of this in the size of the Emperor of China, of the Empire of China. So he toggled between putting some force and putting process in place and all of this, and the Empire of China crumbled. And it took hundreds of years until it regained its power. And what happened is that Lao Tzu was already an old man, and you see him here with his favorite ox. He said to the Emperor of China, okay, I'm already old. Would you mind doing me a favor and giving me a gift, which is my life? And I would like to take my favorite ox and go on a one-way trip to the Himalaya and end my life gracefully there. And the emperor, because he loved Lao Tzu a lot, gave him this gift. Only after Lao Tzu left, the emperor said, in fact, I made a mistake because I had someone whose wisdom I appreciate a lot, and I lost all of this by letting him go. And he blocked all of the roads that lead to the Himalaya and asked all the gods if there's a strange man with an ox going barefoot to stop him and not let him pass before he documents all of his wisdom. And that's what happened. So the Book of Tao, from which we will read soon a little bit, is a book that was written, so the legend says, by Lao Tzu with this god who stopped him. And when the god let him go after he finished, and there was like a packet of bamboo slates, that's the end of the story from Lao Tzu. So Lao Tzu disappeared. Only it's not the end of the story of the book, because what happened is that the emperor received now a book, a collection of bamboo slates, which contains a lot of wisdom. It also contains a lot of criticism toward power and toward emperorship. I'll give you like a small example that Lao Tzu wrote. He said, the firstborn of the emperor is worth as much as the smallest leaf on the smallest bamboo bamboo stick. And I think that Lao Tzu was pissed off at the emperor who stopped him at the gate and didn't let him continue. Only today, the Book of Tao contains, is reproduced, I think, as much as the Bible. Tons of copies of the Book of Tao in a lot of translation. And I think that one of the most interesting things is to appreciate how the emperor appreciated the wisdom of Lao Tzu so much that he left the criticism toward him inside the book that he published. And that's the story of the first Agile coach. So the first Agile coach, from what we saw things clearly, had an advice, and his advice wasn't accepted. Didn't work. Only if we look today in the state of humanity, Lao Tzu has a big footprint in the thought of humanity today, in all the mindfulness, the concept of mindfulness. And a lot of quotes of Lao Tzu are really known, even if you don't know that it's him. So that's the story of Lao Tzu, the first Agile coach. And before we move on, I would love to share with you, because we're talking about agility, a poem from the Book of Tao. So you get a small taste of it. Only I have to remove all of the things that block me. Okay, so this is from a book called the Agile Tao, which I highly recommend, which is a translation of the Book of Tao into agility. And what he says is this: people love to talk about agility. And often that's all there is to it. But there are three values the agile people express and represent: compassion, openness, and discipline. So these are the three values of agility according to Lao Tzu. Compassion generates courage. Openness, learning, and discipline, flexibility. And if you have courage without a warm heart, without a compassion, or if you are learning but you don't have an open mind, or if you are flexible but don't have a coiled spine, you don't recoil back to your posture, then this spells the end of agility. So I wanted to start with this so you see three values, and we'll talk about values later, that according to Lao Tzu, who is my favorite agile coach, are the things that build agility. Questions so far? Okay, so now if there's no questions, I would love to do a small exercise.
So I just wanted to bring
yes,
attention to time. We are 30
yes,
minutes up. That's it.
wonderful. Thanks a lot. So we're almost on time. It's good. If you remember the story that I just said, the Emperor of China had a problem, and you can map his problem on two axes. One axis is how clear is what he wants to do, and two is how clear is how to do it. Okay, so one axis is how the requirements, the what, are the requirements clear? And the other one is the technology that I need to implement it clear to me or not? Okay, and I, like, my heart would say that if I mark it, I put it somewhere here, right? Okay, so what I want to implement as the Emperor of China is not that clear, and the tools that I have for me are not clear. It's a religion, it's a force, not clear how to do it. And now I would like you to do an exercise. Think about your project, or if you don't have a project, about the project you know, and I would like you to map it on this axis. So again, this is the amount of clarity that you have in the problem domain, okay? In what do I want the solution to look like? And this is the axis of how clear is the usage of tools. So just take a heart, or you can draw something, and I want you to put it here. Interesting. Okay. And while you do it, I want to show you something. In fact, there is a graph, I think it's called the Stacy diagram. If I'm wrong, Nicoletta will help me, which shows the amount of complexity that a problem has. And it looks like this. Okay, so what it says that if you have a problem which is clear in the requirement domain and in the technology domain, then you don't need agility. Why? Because agility is the ability to react to a changing situation. If your project is not going to change, if the technology is not going to change, if you master all of them, then just do it. So you don't have to invent new ways to do it to improve, because theoretically you know everything that you need. Now, in this circle, it's a middle circle where either the technology is clear but the requirements are not, or the requirements are clear and the technology is not. And these two are complicated. And there are different kinds of complicated. So here they're complicated, of course, on the technology domain. Here they're complicated on the process domain, and they're more, like they say, social or political issues. And here you can choose Agile, but you can live without it, perhaps. Okay, the problem is here. So here in the complex domain, you have some sort of control. It's not totally chaotic, but there's a lot of unknown. And this is a great space to practice a tool that we will explore tomorrow called Scrum, which is a tool which is meant for, it's a process to accommodate change in a sane manner. And the last quadrant, or the last area here, is a chaotic one. When you don't know today what will happen tomorrow, you don't know now what will happen in an hour, then probably a process that has a breath cycle of a week or two is not enough for you, is not enough fast for you. And there's processes to accommodate that. Kanban, which I think someone else will speak about in this series, and they're out of my scope. So this is sort of a mapping for you to understand, and I see that no one put their project here in a chaotic place. Some have a very clear understanding of the requirements but don't know how, and some have a very clear understanding of technology but don't know what. So for both of this, I think you're in the right corner. And for all of this, it's more a matter of curiosity. So I would highly suggest not trying to reinvent something that you know how to do perfectly, unless you have the time and you're curious. So now let's move on. Just I have to see how I clear all of the annotations. Yes. Okay. And let's move on. So the thing is, and this is part of what the slide illustrated, is that we are living in a VUCA world. So I don't know how many of you heard what is a VUCA world, but I'll explain for the ones who didn't. So VUCA means volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Volatile means that the rate of change is really fast. I'm talking to you and I'm receiving an SMS at the same time. This didn't happen 100 years ago because there was even, the mail perhaps came once in a month. Okay, the change is really, really fast. And also there's uncertainty. So you can't have the tools to predict and prioritize right, because a lot of things are not certain. You have complexity, and complexity means that everything is dependent on everything else. Now, to reach this session, the internet has to work, and my monitor has to work, and Zoom has to work, and like a lot of factors in between that I really, even the electricity has to work, right? We have a lot of things that are dependent on each other. And the last thing is ambiguity. So even when we see something, it's hard to interpret it and understand what's going on. So this, whenever you hear we live in a VUCA world, this is a VUCA world. But in fact, my claim is that we always did. And I love to go back to Lao Tzu. Lao Tzu has some poem that starts with the phrase, in the old days, people would be like this and this and this. And this always amazes me because he wrote this 2,500 years ago, and he talks about how in the old days, people lived in a simpler life. So, of course, we live in a VUCA world, but of course, we always live in a VUCA world. We always did. And this is the evolution that we face. Okay, so let's get back to 2001. So in 2001, what happened was, I think it's sort of a miracle. What happened is this. People from the software domain gathered together because they have the experience that the way that projects are built are really, what works is not what is recommended by the book. Okay, because the book was created for the industrial age. The book was created to manufacture shoes and not to work to do things that change. Like once a factory will produce cigarettes or shoes or cars, and it would do the same thing over and over and over, and there would be no need for innovation. And currently, because we live in a VUCA world, if you don't know how to innovate in a world which is changing, then probably you won't survive that long. So there was a group of men, and this is like, it's funny because one of the reasons I'm happy to talk to a group of women here is because all of these people, 17 people gathered, not one woman there, not one person of color. All of them are Westerners, and they created a manifest that affects a big part of our life today. So what I would love is to get you to know the manifest. So the manifest, just like any nice manifest, starts with a title. So what are we trying to do? What is the problem domain? and it's a manifest for agile software development. So if any of you heard about something called the Agile Manifest, it's the wrong name for it, because let's see, yes, the agile is an adjective, it's not a noun. So what we are trying to do is build software, to develop software in an agile way, and not to do agility. Okay, we're trying to improve something to be more agile. So if you hear someone says, I'm an agile coach, for example, does it mean that they are a coach who is agile? No, it means that they are an agile transformation coach. They're coaching so that the transformation will become agile. So, but this is a side note. So you start by the title, you start by the problem domain. And the next phrase, which is sort of modest, I'd say, is we're uncovering better ways of developing software. And I want to say something about this in a minute. By doing it, by developing ourselves, and by helping others do it. And through this work, we have come to value, and now they will list the value. Before we saw 3 values by Lao Tzu, now we will see the values that they have found. Only one thing that I want you to note here is that a big mistake that they did here in retrospective is talk about, and this also in the title, developing software. Because what they found, or what happened thanks to this movement, is something that affects, for example, I worked with an HR team, how HR works, how manufacturing works, how car manufacturers work, how schools function. So often this thing, talking about development, software development, blocks people from appreciating the message that is behind here, and I would like to unblock this before we even start. Okay, so and in fact, if Lao Tzu talked about 3 values, here they talked about 8 values. And these 8 values are here before you. So they say it's important to have, I don't know what, to follow a plan is important. And to respond to a change is important. And individuals and interaction is really important, right? But also processes and tools are important. And working software is important. And documentation, we said already, it's very important. And customer, all of this is important. And when you read this, in fact, I think that you're a bit overburdened. Like if you read this, you don't see what's great about this manifest. And in fact, if indeed you don't see it, it's because I manipulated it a little bit, because the real important words here are these. They have 4 values, not 8. But the power of the values is not the values themselves, but the format. Is saying we can't have everything important in the same priority. Just like I guess that if you saw a project, if you were in a project, and your project manager says, when you ask what is important, he says everything is important. And when you say, can you prioritize what is priority 1, priority 2, he says everything priority 1. And this is a great way to kill a project. So one of the messages here, besides the 4 values, and I will go into them in details. And by the way, I would love you to put a heart near the value that you like the most. Since we have annotation, let's try this. So the first one is individuals and interactions are more important than processes and tools. What does it mean? It means that if now I have a problem and I need to show it to someone, and the tool asks me to document it and send it, then I will go to that person, I will show him the problem, and then if I must, I will document it. Okay, so I will not try to do the lesser thing before I do the former. And perhaps sometimes I will let it go, because if I show him and he says, listen, you don't have to document it, I will fix it right away, I saved also my time. I didn't I didn't only create a clearer a fix because he saw me showing it, but I saved the time of doing something that in fact no one needs except for the process. And a lot of times when I work with teams and they have a process, I ask them, is the process there to serve you, or are you there to serve the process? And often it's the latter. Often you put things that no one uses just because 5 years ago someone decided to do it like this. Next thing is working software, and again I invite you to replace software with a project or a product over comprehensive documentation. So the big example is, I guess that most of you know a tool called Gmail, and I guess that none of you read the documentation of Gmail because it's made in a simple way. So if you have something, it's better to have something clear that doesn't require you to have documentation. Same thing, by the way, with code. When people write code, if the code is clear enough, no documentation of the code is needed. The code is self-explanatory. Third one is customer collaboration over contractual negotiation. So a lot of times, a contract is something that separates us as a deliverer of something from the customer who wants to have something. And if something is written in the document, you will do it even if you don't think that the customer needs it. And perhaps the customer just put it to protect themselves in case they need it. And if they discover something new and it's not in the contract, then you don't have to do it. There's something in this priority which makes us deliver products that take longer to create and make people less happy. And the last one, which is my favorite one, responding to change over following a plan. So plans are important. Only when your competitor now does something new, are you able to ask your provider to change direction and now to do something to match the new offer of your competitor? Or are you stuck with things that are we have a plan and we can't deviate from it? Okay, so this is the Agile Manifesto, and I see that no one likes the third one. Okay, and that a lot of people like the fourth one, like me. Unless if you put the heart on the following the plan part, it's interesting for me to know. And again, they say, we're not saying that the part on the right is not important. We're just saying that the left part is more important. So I'm not telling you don't develop, don't do a document. I'm saying do a document if it serves you. But working software must be there. I'm not saying don't use processes and tools. Of course, use them because they serve you. But if you give up the communication with other people, the interaction, if you give up the power of the individual, then probably your project, your product, your team will suffer a lot. You will get a suboptimal performance. So this is the Agile Manifesto. And this is how it looks if ever you get to see it with a lot of people who signed it. And before we move on, do you have any questions?
Yes, Dov, there's a question from one of the participants. Do you want me to take it up now?
Of course.
Okay, so there's a question regarding the Synefin framework, which you've just shared with us. So the question is, how come Agile is different than Scrum or Kanban, which are like Agile frameworks only?
Okay, so there's a lot of concepts here, and I have to talk about each one of them. So first of all, I didn't show the Knevin framework. I talked about the concept of a simple, complicated, complex, and chaotic, but I didn't talk about the framework. It's perhaps an opportunity for another talk. It's too deep to go. And also, I think, frankly, that the Knevin framework gets too much hype. And I hope that Dave Snowden doesn't see this video. But if he does, I'll talk to him.
Yeah.
Now, about agility and Scrum and Kanban, agility is a mindset. Agility is not a way of working. Agility is a huge understanding of how things can be from 100 kilometer height. Agility is a set of intentions. What you have here is intentions. You don't have here how. You have here values. What you have here is, I advise you to put more focus on individuals and interactions. How? This page says nothing about it. Okay? Now, Kanban and Scrum are practices, are specific ways of working. Okay, like it's a dance. I'll talk about this tomorrow. It's a choreography. It's a way of that. It tells you, put your left foot forward and then put the right and then raise your left arm up. If you do this and you don't understand the intention behind this, it's useless. So what I would say is agility is the basis, of before you start working in an agile way, quote unquote, you have to understand what agility is. You have to integrate and you have to understand what will be the value that you will get out of it. And if you are not aligned with these values, if you say, for me, by the way, processes are more important than individuals, perhaps the practices that we're talking about are not for you. And if you implement them blindly, you may cause problems in your team and in your organization. You may cause conflicts. So I don't know if it answers the question. So who asked this?
It was from Deepashri.
So Dipashri, can you say if it answers your question, and if not, what's missing?
Yeah, so she's saying, thanks for the explanation. However, then why agility is not needed for simple one?
Because if you know exactly what you're doing, okay, agility is the ability to react. If you have nothing to react to, then why why learn how to react? Okay, if you know how to draw a circle and you don't need any better circle and your speed of drawing a circle is great, then why do you want to try and improve? Is it okay?
Yes, thank you, Dov.
Sure. So I hope, by the way, are there any other questions?
Yes, there's another
Yeah.
question here. Uh, now we say going back to on the end of agility by Lau. Lau?
Yeah, Lao Tzu.
Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting take on discipline and flexibility. Usually discipline equates to being regimental and rigidity. Because the context here is that of resilience, called backbone, which you just mentioned. Is that the right understanding?
Yes, I think what Lao Tzu meant is you have to be flexible, but you don't break your back, right? So when someone pushes you, you do this, and when they stop, you come back. Perhaps not exactly to the same point, because a tree is a good example. A tree, if there's a strong wind, it moves back and forth. If there's wind that's always in the same direction, then you will see trees that grow like this. But every time you don't see them breaking, right? When the wind goes, they go like this, and after years like this and 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 like this. But they always come back. It's not that the wind blows and it stays now like this. No, it goes back. Okay, so what Lao Tzu says is, be connected to your center. what I understand that he says. Okay, does it answer the question?
Yes, sounds good. Thank you. Thanks, Dov.
My pleasure. Every time that someone asks me to interpret him, I feel I understand him more. Okay, so now that we got this, these fine men in Colorado in 2001 had 2 days, and as you see, this page is really short. And they said, now that we defined our values, which by the way took a lot of time, we want to get into something more concrete, into principles. And again, principles are not a process, but principles are more concrete guidelines. And so there's 12. I will read them. I try to make in bold the principles so you understand them better. And again, I would love you to put a heart near what resonates well with you. So the first one is the first, I think, I don't think they're prioritized, but the first one is. And the first one says, our highest priority is to satisfy the customer. How? By delivering early and delivering continuously and delivering value. Okay, so the customer receives value all the time. Value doesn't have to be value of something that is sellable. Perhaps it's value of something that he can test, or she can test and understand and have a better insight of what they want. Okay, this is the first one. Second one is deliver working product frequently. So 2 words that are important: a working product. So every iteration, every time that we deliver something that's working, not something that's half working, and we deliver it fast. And not only fast, I love the word frequently. It means not first time after 3 days, second time after 2 weeks, after that after a week. No, frequently means that it has a cadence, that it has a frequency. Third one is this, and hold on, I'll use the annotator. The most effective and efficient and effective method of conveying information to the team and inside the team, and it's not only development team, as I said, is face-to-face conversation. Okay, every time you delete a medium, you lose your clarity, you lose your engagement. So receiving an email is much worse than talking to you. Not only that it takes more energy, also it's less clear. Next one is our process welcomes changing requirements, even late. So if you wanted something and now you want something else, but we deliver in 2 weeks and I can't do it in 2 weeks, I'm trying to welcome your requirements. And in fact, we harness the change for the customer's competitive advantage. So if you work in an agile way, your customer is invited to say, listen, I have to have this feature which I didn't think about before. My competitor did this, or I have a new idea anytime, even 2 days before the delivery of the final product. So we never are, as I saw, by the way, in a lot of project I work, we never pissed off that you say, now you're coming with this. No, I can't. No, great. I want to hear that. I want to have your insight, and let's now plan together how we do it, if we do it. Next one, business people and developers or team members must work together daily throughout the project. So I can tell you that I was in teams where we never saw our business people. Or I was in teams where I was the team lead years ago, and I was the only one who ever talked to the business people because they didn't want to come talk to the team. Here they say, no, you sit near the team. You take a chair and you sit right near the team. And I want you to talk every day. Next one, I love, by the way, and you will agree with it, but it has nuances. Build projects around motivated individuals. So hire people who are motivated. Don't motivate them. Give them the environment and support they need. Okay, and you know how many times people have to fight to get a more comfortable chair or a monitor or something like this, right? And trust them to get the job done. And now, unfortunately, I have to clear all of your hearts because we're going to the second page. How do I do that? Drawings and okay. Next one, working product is the primary measure of progress. So how do you know? Sorry, let's say that your boss comes to you and they say, "Are you done?" And you say, "I'm 90% done." And the 90% took you a month. How much time will it take you to finish? The true answer from my experience is you have no clue. Often the 10% takes more than the 90%. So the only measurement of how much you progress is how much things are totally finished. If you have to write 4 reports and you finished 3 and put them in the envelope, I know that you wrote 3 out of the 4. But if all 3 are 70% done, I have no clue how much it will take you, and neither do you. Continuous attention to technical excellence and good design enhance agility, and this is something important. I think more in the software domain, but not just. Is that often because of stress, teams skip the quality. And what happens in software is that the quality that you skip today, you pay twice every time, because if you didn't write today an automated way to test your code, it means that from now on, every time you change the code, you will have to test it manually. And now if you leave it for 2 years, you will waste much more than you would waste if now you would write an automated test for this. And so this is an example, but it's true also in other domains. Next, the best architecture requirements and design emerge from self-organizing teams. What it says, and often I have a lot of resistance when I read this from architects, of course, or from project managers, is let the things emerge. Let the teams discover what's the best architecture, or you will either over complexify your system or build a great solution to something that's not your problem. So you will choose a complex architecture while it doesn't solve the problem that you have. If you have, for example, again in the software domain, if you have a performance issue, solve it when it's there. Don't solve it because you think it will be there. The next one is agile processes promote sustainable development. The sponsor, the developers, and the user should be able to maintain a constant pace indefinitely. And so what it means is, please don't stay nights working. Okay? Work in a way that is sane, because, and this happens to a lot of teams, if you have to stay at night to solve problem because of stress, now the system learns that this is the normal behavior, and they will demand you to stay nights every night. So keep the health of your people and of your system. Next one is, again, my favorite in the principles. I love this one. It's like, it looks like it came from the book of Tao. Simplicity, the art of maximizing the amount of work not done, is essential. The more you can not do, the better. The more you can avoid doing, the more you can deliver half, and it will be enough, the better. Don't deliver complex solutions to something that you don't need, because you will have to maintain it, and it will be too many features for the users. So this is like, I would just put it in the book of Tao as is. And the last one is The last one, in fact, all of them start touching a process. The last one says, I invite you at regular intervals to reflect on how to become more effective. So do a meeting together and think, what did we learn since our last meeting to become more effective? And what do we want to tune and change in our behavior? And in fact, I would even say differently, what do we want also to test? So I don't know what will happen, but I have a hypothesis that if I type with my right hand and not with my left hand, the code will be more emotional. And it's interesting, what will happen if I do this? So perhaps in the team, we can decide that during the next week, we will try this for 30 minutes. And at the end, let's have a coffee and see what did we learn from this experiment. Perhaps we learned something that will improve our work. Perhaps we just had fun. But we had an experiment. And in fact, the way I like to say it is, I encourage you to make experiments that don't kill you. So these are the 12 principles. And again, I see that people like them. It's great. And this is sort of the end of the definition of what agility is. Any questions?
No, Dov, no questions.
No questions. Okay. So as I said, my goal here was to show you different aspects about the definition of agility, and I want to show you another one. So one of the people that you saw in the photo is called Alistair Cockburn. Let me delete all of the annotation. And Alistair Cockburn is someone that is more I would say more connected to the human side of no, I have to see how I delete this. Okay, the human side of agility. He was one of the more influencing out of the 17. And in fact, he thought, how can I simplify this? And he proposed his own version of the 4 values. And the 4 values are really simple. To be agile, you have to respect 4 values. One is delivery. Delivery is important. Another one is to reflect, to think, to analyze. Another one is to improve. And the last one is to collaborate. Okay, so these are the 4 words. So for him, the manifest has only 2 words that are required. Looks simple, right? And in fact, they affect each other. So your delivery gives you things to reflect about, and your reflection gives you ideas how to improve. And to improve, you have to collaborate, and you have also to collaborate in order to deliver. And delivery is also delivery of improvements. And all of this big interconnection of the 4 with the heart in the middle, because he calls it the heart of Agile. And again, just like we saw before, there's a way to expand this. So once you understand this, and I'm trying just to give you a small taste, the next phase is to say delivery means learning and means income, means like delivery. So you deliver something and you deliver learning. And when you reflect, you have insights and you have improvements. And to improve, you have to change and you have to experiment. And the circle grows wider and even wider than this. I'm sorry, this one is, I didn't find a clear photo of this, but and this starts to be really practices, right? So to improve, include emotions and focus forward, and to trust, let someone else do it and allow failure. So he has this notion of starting from simple and then expanding it. And this is another example of agility. And what I wanted you to see today, and I think that I'll stop. How are we doing time-wise? Anyone?
20 minutes left.
30 minutes left. Okay. So what I would love is first to stop sharing and to hear you. So what you get out of this session so far? I have a little thing to end, but so far I would love to have your feedback.
So I feel that this was not a very conventional way of introducing us all to the concept. Uh, Agile or agility is not something very new to any of us here. But as I wrote in the starting, I was looking forward to a different way of facilitation, different way of connecting with the audience, different way. So I totally got that. I loved it. Also, you bringing up modern agility by Cockburn was something light and refreshing. Of course, I like the Taoism and the Ganesha relation. Um, so yeah, altogether a different way of learning, a different way of facilitating. I liked how you use smaller tools available within Zoom. So that's from my side. Thank you.
Sure, but I would love to hear someone, one of the guests, or two.
The session was great, Dov. All these things, I've been like reading all these things in the books, and uh, the way you have explained things and the way you have conducted these little games and exercises, the message was conveyed much more, easier. Like there was this word, the lesser that is done, it is the better. So that one line I was not able to understand. I tried to Google it many times, but the proper explanation I could not get from anyone. I was not able to understand what exactly it means, that if you're not doing something, it is. I have really understood. So, your methodology, how you teach, how you convey your, this thing is very easy to understand. Thank
And
you.
anyone else? So if you remember, you wrote in the beginning, what are your goals? I'd love to hear, were your goals achieved so far? And you don't have to be shy.
So there is a compliment from Deepashri Jha. She says, learned about Tao and Stacy model, new way of annotation usage, and a good correlation to the Ganesha, impediment solver. A good listener was interested.
Okay. Any questions? So great compliments, okay? But I would love to hear some questions. Anything that you want me to discuss in the time left before I do my small closure? What were you expecting that you didn't get?
I think no questions. It was a great introduction. If you look at the comments as well, wonderful.
Okay, so I'll continue. If perhaps I'll manage to confuse you in the end. We'll see.
So we have only
See.
14 minutes in the time box.
No problem. It's good enough. So I'm proud to be in the time zone, like to manage my time that well. Okay, so I would love to end with another poem from Lao Tzu from the same book. And by the way, if you loved the book, you can download it. So there's two things about this. One is there is a book called the Agile Tao, and it's you can find it in LeanPub. And if you download, I don't tell anyone, but if you download the demo version is the full version, and it's a great reading for me. And the second thing is that I'm running a podcast with Peter Merrill, the author of the book, where each time we take about 30, 40 minutes and we discuss a poem like this, like the one you saw, the one you will see, and dive deep into it. And in fact, we are trying to answer the question, if someone like the head of HR or a CEO or a developer or I don't know who reads this poem what is left? What will change in the way they behave today in the office? So these are the two things that if you like the Book of Tao, you can connect, or I'm sure the Book of Tao, there's a version in India as well. And last thing is I would love to read to you, from what I understand, what we read before is the definition of the values of agility. But this is a poem that describes a little bit what is agility. So if you want to understand what is agility, I'll try to read it slow and perhaps even read it twice. And I'll just get the pointer because I love the pointer. Me too. I discovered the tool in Zoom. So like for me, every session I'm trying to do something I didn't do before. This is the first time that I use this tool in Zoom for a crowd. Okay, so you can close your eyes and open your heart. Mindset. Agility is practical, not mystical. A way of working, not a state of grace. Listening as if crossing thin ice. Testing as if surrounded by danger. Learning as in a strange land. So just some details. When you cross a thin ice, I don't know if you ever did, I didn't, by the way, you have to be very careful where you step and listen to your footsteps, or your stuff will happen that you don't want. Testing as if surrounded by danger. And I always imagine the testers that I know, do they really test as if there's danger if they don't test well? Learning as in a strange land. So when you go to a new country, everything is new. The food and the scenery and the trees and the weather and the sun sets differently and the people look differently. Simplifying is throwing snow. So snow is complicated. Snow is a complicated crystal, but when it thaws, it becomes as simple as water. Integrating as the deep woods. So like in the forest, there's a lot of trees, but they're all inside each other. You can't separate one tree from the other. They're all one big ecosystem or mix. Leading is the river valley, and the river valley doesn't tell the water where to flow, but it makes the way for it. And when the way for it is made, water flows when it wants, where it wants, and it flows in the direction that the river valley tells it to. And innovating is the spring silt. Spring silt is the mud that are near the river, and in the spring it's fertile and it invites new things to grow. Imagine the ice solid or the stream clear. Stop to plan your way ahead. Ignore what moves underfoot. You fall and disappear. So this is Lao Tzu's definition of agility. And I love that it says, like if you read in LinkedIn or you talk to people, they talk about agility as something mystical, as something, very soft. But agility is a very practical way. It's a practical way of living. It's a practical approach to life. And also, it's a way of working, not a state of grace. It's not like you wait for agility to come down, you practice. So this was the first thing I wanted to do. And before we leave, I would love to do this. So to say goodbye, but also to have the Feast of Five. So let me stop sharing. Okay, and I would like everyone to open the video and to give feedback for this session. So you spend an hour and a half of your time here. One means was total waste of time. Five means I got a lot out of it. And what I would like for you is to give a number. Please open your video so we can take a screenshot. So one, give a number, and two, if you gave anything less than a 5, write down what is missing for a 5 in the chat. And if you give a 5, write in one word why, or in 2 words why. Okay? So 1, 2, 3. That's the. Okay. Can you take a screenshot with the other hand? Okay. And I would love to read your comments. If you have, before I say goodbye, we have 7 minutes, I think. If there's any questions or comments, if you want to talk about something, I would love to hear that.
There are a couple of comments there in the chat box. So do you want me to read them out for you?
If they're interesting, yes.
Nice interactive session from Dipashri. And then simplicity, that was really it. Loved how you introduced the concepts, Dov. Thank you so much. And there was a request for the link, the Book of Tao, which was already shared.
Yeah, with Nicoletta, that's great.
Then it was a nice learning experience, new methods and tools. So it's going great. I really liked the session, a very good facilitation. So lots of good comments about the session.
Wonderful. I'm looking more for questions. Like if we have 5 minutes and someone has a burning question, I would love to answer it.
And while people sharing questions, I would like to tell that we have our this session continuing tomorrow for Scrum Framework. I would request each one of you, if not registered already, go ahead and register because we are going to have another 1.5 hours of fun tomorrow.
Yeah, you can publish the link.
Sure,
Any
I'll just
other,
do that.
any complicated questions? Does anyone want to look at to have a?
You should be happy. There is no question, you know. Okay? You totally conveyed the whole concept. So people are happily, you know, satisfied. There are no open questions.
Great. So if there's no question, I'll see whoever comes in tomorrow. Take care.
Yeah.
Enjoy your afternoon.
Tomorrow. Thanks, Dave. See you tomorrow. Yeah. Bye-bye.